What's going on, you guys? This is All-Day-Into-One of the PS4, and I'm going to be giving you guys another Division 2 build video. And with this build video I'm going to be giving you guys is going to actually be 3 different builds, or not 3 different builds, but multiple different builds, all into one video for the raid. It's all raid builds that are going to be very useful for speedrunners out there. Obviously we're not going to be able to one-shot any of the bosses, but speedruns is still technically there. You can get the raid done in about 16 minutes speedrunning it, and these are going to be the builds that you're definitely going to want to be using for these runs. Now these are all different builds, and they're each used for specific different bosses and different areas, and there's also three different versions of each build. But we're going to go ahead and get started. The first set is going to be your DPS builds. So the first build you're going to actually want to go ahead and use, which is going to be used for the Tarmac, for basically ad clearing, luggage, and even Buddy&Lucy, this could be really useful for, is a crit build. A very high crit chance, crit damage build. As long as you're at least 50% crit chance and higher, then you're fine. Crit damage, you're going to vary between like 130 to 150% crit damage on this build. But you're going to definitely want to run a rifle. I run the Baker's Dozen with this. You can run a M1A with a boomerang as well, because when you hit an enemy with boomerang, it has a 50% chance to give you your bullet back and 40% extra damage for that bullet that returned. I'm running a Bullet King just for secondary, 3-piece Providence Defense, and on the chest you got to make sure you have perfect glass cannon, because perfect glass cannon is going to allow you to go 30% extra damage, but you do take an extra 60% damage. But you know, the NPCs already hit hard as it is, so that doesn't really matter. And then you want to get vigilance as well. You're not going to run like perfect vigilance or anything, it doesn't really matter. You're just going to run regular vigilance. And then for the gloves, you want to make sure you have the contractor's gloves, because it's going to give you an 11% damage to armor. And even if you're not running an LMG, it's still going to be very useful. 11% is multiplicative, or that damage to armor is multiplicative, as well as the knee pads giving you 15% damage to target out of cover, which only comes on the Fox's Prayer, and that's the Overlord Armaments variant. And the 15% damage to enemies out of cover, I mean, that affects pretty much every boss in the game, or just in general. And NPCs obviously running around. So you're gonna run for your holster a Grupo holster, but if you don't have enough crit chance, you can actually go ahead and run the Cheska holster, and because that gives you 10% extra crit chance. But the Grupo, if you already have 50% and higher crit chance, then that's going to be definitely better to run. As you can see, I'm at 52.8% crit chance and 147.4% crit damage, with 94.9% headshot damage and 17% damage to armor, which is the max damage to armor. But that's it for the first build. This one, a lot of people generally already have it, so it's not going to be too hard to make. But we're going to go ahead and go to the next build, which is actually going to be a little bit harder to make. So this is going to be your headshot crit build. You're not going to have a high amount of crit damage, but you do want to have crit chance on pretty much all your pieces except for your gloves and your knee pads. This is going to have a high amount of headshot damage, and this is going to be used for bosses like Boomer, Weasel, and even Buddy&Lucy. So you obviously want to go ahead and start off with the Sharpshooter, because Sharpshooter gives you the stability, which is going to be useful for the M1A, because it does jump around a lot whether you are playing the Sharpshooter or not. But on the M1A, you want to make sure you have Rifleman. Rifleman, it says landing headshots adds a stack of bonus 10% weapon damage for 5 seconds. Max stack is 5. Additional headshots refresh the duration, so you can have a 50% increase in damage, weapon damage, just for hitting 5 headshots, which is going to be really easy against Boomer, Weasel, and Buddy&Lucy when you're using this. Obviously, Buddy&Lucy, you're either going to switch between the Bullet King or the M1A. If you run Bullet King, you're going to generally just run the crit build instead of this, but if you do run this, you definitely want to make sure you have Rifleman, because that is a lot of extra damage. Now for the attributes, you want to make sure you either have damage to target out of cover or damage to armor, because damage to armor, all bosses have armor except for Razorback. And for damage to enemies out of cover, that affects the first 3 bosses as well, because they're out of cover, they're not in cover ever. And as you can see, I'm running the Bullet King, but like I said, you can run whatever you want. You don't have to necessarily run the Bullet King because this build mainly relies on using the M1A with Rifleman, because you're going to be doing a lot of headshots. You're stacking up as much headshot damage as possible. But the Bullet King is a good alternative as well, or secondary. So you're going to run 3-piece Oraldi. As you can see, I have headshot damage on it, but you don't want to have crit damage. It's going to be a hard farm because you want to make sure you have a good amount of weapon damage on the core attribute, headshot, and crit chance. Like I said, it's not going to be an easy farm, but it is something you definitely want to get. Now for the chest, you have to make sure it's the perfect focus. If it's not perfect focus, then, I mean, you can get regular focus, but you're going to get, it's 10% more damage from perfect focus and focus. Focus gives you 50% increase in total. And all you have to do is just aim in your scope. So you got to make sure it's at 8 times or higher on your rifle, on your M1A. You're going to run Contractor's Gloves with headshot damage on it, and then the Fox's Prayers knee pads with headshot damage on it as well. Not crit chance. It's not a crit build, but you are going to have crit chance on this build. And then for the holster, you're going to also run either Oraldi or Providence. Doesn't really matter. Providence can go on the backpack, mask, or the holster. For your skills, you can run a Booster Hive if you want to put out more damage, because the Booster Hive does give you more damage. And then you also, it would be ideal to run a Ballistic Shield, the Crusader Shield, while you're using the rifle, because you can do that. And while aiming in, you get the focus or perfect focus stacks built up while you're aiming in while you're on the shield, and it doesn't actually scope in the actual sight. So if you don't like using the sight, just use a shield. But the enemies will be able to break your shield, and that just sucks. And you can't use cover either. But yeah, as you can see, I'm at 223.6% headshot damage. Now I'm going to actually show you one of my clan members build, which is exactly the same, but it's a lot better. It's pretty much perfect. And this is Rakim's build. I'm showing you, he's got pretty much all the right rolls, all the right build, or pretty much everything is perfect with this build. Everything is almost min-maxed. He's got the headshot and crit chance on every piece, which is really good. I don't know why he's using an M1A with no Rifleman. I think he just doesn't have Rifleman, so he's using Boomerang, which is another really good alternative. Either Boomerang or I forgot what the other one is called, but a Lucky Shot. So either those two are good alternatives, or Ranger. But aside from that, I mean, you should be over 30% crit chance and 240% headshot. Now let's go ahead and get into the last build, which is for Razorback. So for this build, it's going to be a damage to health crit build for Razorback. Only Razorback. None of the other bosses are going to be, you're going to need this build for. But for this build, you got to make sure you have an M1A with Boomerang and damage to health, or damage to enemies out of cover, because Razorback only has health, no armor, and Razorback is out of cover. So you can run either or of those attributes. And you only need 4 people running this build. You don't need 5, you don't need 6, or any more than that. The reason why is because 2 people on one wing will break the wing automatically. You only need, if one person can get the wing down to half to 70%, so 50 to 70% of the wing is gone, the weak point, by themselves. If you were to have someone not running this type of build, it would take them ages to break one wing. I've seen it, like we've all seen it. But it's just going to be really nice to have, being able to get through each phase, all 4 phases with this build. So you only need 4 people. The other 4 should run something different. So what makes this build really good is you're going to actually be running a mask that gives you 21% damage to health, which is the Hollow Man mask. Obviously mine didn't come with really good rolls. It didn't come with high weapon damage. It came with like 6% weapon damage. You can only get the Hollow Man from the Dark Zone as well. Ideally, you want to have a Hollow Man that comes with at least 10 weapon damage and higher, and crit chance on it, so because it already comes with 21 damage to health. And then you're going to have a Providence backpack with crit chance, crit damage, and vigilance. And then you're going to run Grupo on your gloves, or Seska, one or the other, doesn't matter, but Grupo or Seska. And then just so you can get that 15% extra crit damage from this is a really good rolled Grupo glove. 15 weapon damage, and then I rolled 6 crit chance and 12. It already had 12 crit damage. And for the chest, perfect glass cannon, I mean 30% extra damage, and then it's gonna give you the crit chance for Providence as well. And then for the holster, you can either run a third piece of Providence or Seska. And the reason why you would run a third piece is so you can get the extra 15% crit damage. But if you run Seska, it just means you don't have enough crit chance, so you're using that to give you an extra 10% crit chance. You do need to make sure you have crit chance and crit damage all rolled on it as well, though. And then the last thing is going to be the Fox's Prayer knee pads, and you definitely want to make sure you have crit damage rolled on it or crit chance, one or the other, preferably crit damage. Now if you did get it with crit chance, that means you should not be using a Seska piece at all. You should have 3-piece Providence and 1-piece Grupo. And as you can see, my stats, I'm at 53.6% crit chance and 136% crit damage. Now if you did have this build min-max, then it should be 50% and higher crit chance and over 140, maybe 150% crit damage. But this build is going to be a game changer when it comes to doing the Razorback fight. But now we're going to go to the support builds. So for the first support build I'm going to be showing you guys is going to be a DPS buff build. This DPS buff build will benefit both you and your team because you're going to help put out a lot more damage, as well as help your team put out a lot more damage. So you want to make sure you have an SPD and a shotgun. I was going to say ACS 12, but you can have whatever shotgun you'd like, something like maybe a Sweet Dreams, so you can just run around and one smack an enemy. But your main goal is to buff your team by applying opportunistic, overwatch, crit, extra stuff. Like I said, the ACS 12 is one of the other options. It's just my favorite because it came with good rolls. First of all, shotgun damage at 11, 9 damage to armor, and 8 damage to enemies out of cover with close and personal. So you're gonna go ahead and run Coyote's Mask as obviously your exotic mask. You should be able to get this during the seasons once you hit rank 35. If not, then just farm Coyote enemies or Coyote bosses. I came with really nice rolls. You are going to be using that Pack Instincts talent. Pack Instincts stacks up with all 3 if 3 people are wearing it. If 2 people are wearing it, you're only going to get 2 of those buffs. If 1 person is wearing it, you're only going to get 1 of those buffs. But the thing is, those buffs can change. If you have 3 people wearing this mask, then it's going to keep all 3 buffs up at all times. Now for the backpack, doesn't matter what backpack you wear, but I am using the Araldi backpack because I want to be able to help clear ads out with the SVD or shotgun, whatever, so I'm getting that extra 10% marksman rifle damage. But your main goal is to have opportunistic on the backpack. Doesn't matter what else you have, but if you do want more damage output on the attributes, make sure you have crit chance and headshot damage or crit damage. But realistically, it doesn't matter. You're just there for opportunistic. 10% extra damage for every win, and it lasts for 5 seconds. And opportunistic is multiplicative as well, so you're going to be applying, you're basically buffing your team a lot. Everyone hits that one enemy that's applied with opportunistic, it's a lot of damage. So now for the chest, you're gonna run Overwatch, and the reason why is because Overwatch is going to give you and your allies extra weapon damage and skill damage for 12%. But the thing is, you have to be in cover for 10 seconds or longer, and if you get out of cover, then you lose that buff. But you can go cover to cover, and yeah, as long as you remain in cover and you go cover to cover, then you get that buff and you keep it. Now for the gloves and the knee pads, is going to be the contractor's gloves like normally, because like I said, you're going to be helping clear out ads anyways. This is still a really strong build for clearing ads, by the way. And the Fox Prayer's knee pads, 15% damage to enemies out of cover, and I'm running the Seska holster so that way I get more crit chance, so I can put out more damage with this build. Now for the abilities, you can either run Stinger Hive, Revive Hive, or Booster Hive. Any of those work because, I mean, they all technically help and buff you. Booster Hive is going to give you a base 10% damage increase. It's not multiplicative, it's additive damage, but anyone that's affected by your Booster Hive gets a 10% damage increase. It's not movement speed anymore, they changed that completely, but it's still a really nice buff to have. And then I'm running a jammer pulse just for the drones or whatever. If there's drones out, that's what I use, and it works really well. As you can see, I'm at 57.7 crit chance on my SVD, only 666 crit damage, whoops, and 107.6% headshot damage. My shotgun is at 52.7 crit chance, 76.6 crit damage, 62.6 headshot. And now we're going to go ahead and go into the next build, which is very similar. So like I said, this build is very similar but very different. It's a healer build, but it's also a buff build, just like the last one. This one is going to allow you not to necessarily kill the enemies quick, but it's going to be very useful when it comes to buffing your team damage wise, but also being able to keep them alive when, like, for example, the boomer fight. If you're in the middle, you can still apply opportunistic to all the adds. You can give your team overwatch, as well as applying opportunistic to boomer and keeping your team alive. That's why this is a very valuable build to run in the raid. And not only that, but having that exotic mask is going to be very useful. Now, if you do run this exotic mask, if you run the Coyote's mask, you have to play as a technician. Otherwise, you will not be able to get the tier 6 skill tier. You need to be able to get to the skill tier 6. Otherwise, you know, your healing is pretty bad. You don't have to be a skill tier 6, but recommended running this. Now, obviously, you're going to have opportunistic and overwatch, like I had already mentioned, but on every single one of your attributes, you want to have skill haste and repair skills. Obviously, on the backpack, it didn't come with skill haste, it came with repair skills, and I put on opportunistic, or I had opportunistic on it. It came with explosive resistance, which is still fine, but it's not optimal. But you're gonna run 2-piece Murakami and 3 pieces of the Alps. Now, for the chest, if someone is already running Overwatch, it doesn't stack, so that way you can actually just run Empathic Resolve, so that way you're giving your team more buffs that way by giving them, whenever they get heals, they get a 15% or 10% damage buff, and it's really nice. If your hive is doing 300k healing and 1 mil repair on your chem launcher, then it's really good. So now it's the last support build. So this is the last support build. It's going to be a healing build, just straight up healing. This is going to also be very useful when it comes to, like, the I guess the Weasel fight, because you're not going to be able to just instantly kill those bosses, and when they launch those bombs at you, it's going to be very annoying. I'm running Sweet Dreams, so when those ads spawn out, I could just run up and one hit the purple ads. The red ads, I wouldn't worry about one hit meleeing them, just only the purple ads, because they have armor, the reds don't. You can kill them pretty easily. And then same thing as the last build, the healing buff build, or healing DPS buff build. You're going to run 3 pieces of Alps, 2 pieces Murakami, so that way you're getting a total of 30% repair skills. You're going to run Safeguard on your backpack, though, because that is going to double the amount of healing you're doing. And then obviously my gloves came with really nice rolls, pretty much God rolled gloves. You're going to run the Tardigrade chest piece. It's the exotic chest that gives basically your whole team unbreakable. I had the wrong mod on, so you're going to see me switching it. I thought about putting incoming heals, but then I just thought, I don't need incoming heals. So you can actually go with resistances or just go with protection from elites. So I just decided to go with protection from elites. But the Tardigrade chest is going to be really nice because it's unbreakable for everybody, including yourself, and it's giving everybody, including yourself, 80% armor when they lose their armor, or 80% of your total armor to everybody. So they would basically be getting about 650k extra armor back, because that's about 80% of your armor. I'm just guessing right now. But what's nice about this also is if you kill an enemy with a skill signature ability, it cools down that. It basically does a cooldown for that. So instead of waiting 45 seconds, kill an enemy and you get it back with the technician, or using that technician signature. By the way, you should probably run the technician as well with this build, so that way you're at that max skill tier 6. But yeah, anyways, for that hive, I'm also at 313.7k, which means it would equate to about 627k healing per charge, which is really good. That's about one charge per one charge per heal, or one heal per tick, whatever. And then the chem launcher will be doing about 2.1 mil healing on just one burst heal. But yeah, now we're gonna go to the final build of the video. So this is going to be a jammer build. For those of you that don't know, I had made a jammer build a long time ago, back when the raid first released. That's when I made my first jammer build, and I've been using it ever since, until they nerfed jammer builds to the ground. But jammer builds are back, and all you need to do is just run 4-piece hardwired. The weapons does not matter what you're running, because you're not going to have enough damage anyways, but I am using a Bullet King. Make sure you are running the crossbow though, survivalist, because you're going to be using the crossbow to open up the vents. Now, unless somebody else has crossbow, you have like 3-4 other crossbows, whatever, then it doesn't matter. Now for the build itself, you got to make sure you have skill damage on this, because your jammer does do more damage the more skill damage you have. So being able to guarantee those kills against those drones is going to be a must, because there's been so many times where I just put skill haste on my jammer build and I was down to like 9 seconds, 8 seconds on my EMP jammer, but that didn't matter because the drones stayed alive because they never got killed. So having skill damage on your build is going to be very crucial. I'm running the Wyvern mask because that gives you 10% skill damage, and then I'm running the Hana U knee pads, but I want to actually use my Hana U gloves because it's perfect. As you can see, skill damage max is skill haste maxed, but I never re-rolled my hardwired knee pads, and I don't have the materials to do that, so I'm just not worried about it at the moment. But that's basically what I wanted to do. As you can see, skill damage on pretty much everything except for the gloves. There's just one hardwired piece that's going to have skill haste, so 3 skill damage and 1 skill haste. But on the mask and the Wyvern and the Hana U piece is going to have skill damage and skill haste on them. But yeah, that's honestly it with this build. There's really nothing secretive about this. I am running a regular assault turret, so I can actually help damage adds. So if I'm at 1 plate, I can literally just drop my turret and it will shoot adds from adds at 1, 2, and 4, and it does a lot of damage. I mean, it's 106.5k damage per bullet, but honestly, it tears the adds apart really nicely, and I would honestly recommend anyone using this build to run that assault turret. Obviously, you need to run a jammer. It's going to have a really big radius, so no need for a radius mod, but you know, obviously having radius mods and cooldown mods is going to be good. But the way it works is, as you can see, I used my jammer and now my jammer is back. On the very bottom of my screen, you're going to see the hardwired symbol charging back up. Once it's back up and it's orange, then you can use the jammer again, and you basically have an unlimited cooldown, and it's a 15-second duration on that. If you use it while that is off, then you're gonna have to wait your cooldown, which is fine. But I mean, because there's gonna be some cases where you might need to do that because there might be a random set of drones spawning out. But that's pretty much it, and yeah. So that's pretty much it with this video. Hopefully this helped you guys out. If it did, go and leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know down in the comment section as well, and I'll try my best to answer them to the best of my ability. I know I didn't have any like actual raid footage, but trust me when I say this, we use this in the raid and it works great. It's really good to have when it comes to speed runs or just, you know, efficient type runs. Even casual runs is really nice, but for the most part, this is going to make your raid runs a lot easier and a lot cleaner and a lot quicker. Obviously you're not running unbreakable or anything, but you do still have a good amount of support and damage combined, and you're going to get through the raid within like 20 minutes. If you're really good and really clean, then maybe 15 to 16 minutes. But like I said, that's pretty much it. This is all DD1 of the PS4. Have a good day, good night, and peace.